What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Upper Room Talks. As always, I'm joined here with my guy Hoyt.
What's up, guys?
And so today we are going to be kicking off part number 3 of our discipleship series that we are walking through. But before we do that, I just want to take a second and say thank you, first off, for joining us and being a part each and every week, whether that's through listening on our podcast or watching on social media or on YouTube. And so thank you so much. Like, subscribe. We are very appreciative of you being a part, and hopefully this is encouraging to you. And even as our main scripture kind of today, as we're kicking it off, as iron sharpens iron, again, hopefully this is building each other's faith as you are listening to this today. So today we're going to be kicking off part number 3 of our discipleship series. So we talked about modeling, we talked about motivating. So we're modeling what we are wanting to happen. So as followers of Jesus, we are modeling Christ, right? As Paul modeled Christ. And then we are motivating, right? We are encouraging, we are helping, we are right there influencing others with the way that we carry ourselves and the way that we act and the way that we walk in our faith. And then today, we're going to be talking about mentorship, talking about being a mentor. And again, you could spend hours on each one of these, but we're kind of bringing it all together to make it make sense. And so being a mentor, what that looks like, but also what it looks like for the person that's being mentored. And so we're going to kind of look at that today as we are becoming a person of influence for the kingdom of God. And so we're going to jump into our main text, Proverbs 27:17. Once you read that.
Yep, Proverbs 27:17. It says, "Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another." And I wanted to talk a little bit about like forging and sharpening, making things out of metal. I used to be super into that stuff. I never really got into doing it with my hands, but I like watching it.
Yeah, no, it's super. I watched the series, TV series, Forged in Fire.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
dude. It's so cool watching those guys. I think there was one time we were actually at the beach, and me and Maddie, we just binge watched for it was like a whole entire day. It was like we woke up, we didn't really want to go outside. We're at the beach, we're on the beach. We came all the way to the beach to sit and watch Forge and Fire for 12 hours. It's just so cool. Or the TV show Blown, how they're making glass and making that with the fire, and they're blowing it up and creating pieces of art. It's super cool. Anyway, that's a whole. I'm just saying.
But the way you have to do it, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I just thought this was cool to talk about. The way you have to do it is everything has to be heated. It all has to be heated first, even to sharpen iron. And this was the part that I wanted to look at. To sharpen iron, if you take a file, and I mean, there's faster ways to do it. You can get on a sander, a machine, and it spins sandpaper, and it just and you can just stick the knife on there and hold it there, and it'll sand it for you. But to do it in a more traditional way, you have to heat the knife and take a file and file off shavings of iron. So the file has these little cuts in it, and it'll grab and it'll take off kind of like a saw. And in order to do that, it has to be heated, because if it's cold, it'll just skate across.
Yeah.
If it's cold, it's not going to grab anything. So it has to be heated first in order to be able to cut it off. And I just thought it was cool, because as we walk with God, sometimes we are hating the flame that we're in, hating the heat that's being put on us and the pressure that's being put on us, the cuts that are being taken out of our lives. But for one thing, we need that heat in order that someone else can come along and help us to shave off the parts of our life that are unimportant,
for sure,
in order to sharpen us so that we can become useful.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, it's really cool because it's a process. It takes time. It's not easy. It's painful. In the same way, a forger is creating and sharpening this knife that takes time. There's process, there's heat, there's quenching, there's all of these different aspects of building this one knife. And it's super cool whenever you kind of begin to dig in it, and these guys understood it, as Proverbs is written. I mean, they would have been in that world creating those things and making those things. And there would have been a process to make each and every individual sword or knife or spear or whatever. And it all took time, and it all took, sharpening and creating it. So no, it's really, really cool. Mentorship takes time. Mentorship is a process. And we, as people that are being mentored, I hope that you're being poured into and being mentored. I hope that I'm being mentored. And if you're not, you find people around you that will mentor you and teach you. And because the answer is, I just know it all, I understand it all, but you want to heed other people's wisdom.
Right.
And so for those that are receiving it, you have to be patient in the process as well. And you have to be willing to be malleable, right? As these metals are malleable, they're able to change, and you're able to mold them and craft them and create it. And so in that same way, we should be as well. And so there's a part of mentorship that, again, yes, we mentor, but also the person being mentored has to receive it. And so that kind of goes into our first point right here. And kind of the idea that we've been talking about all month and through the series is having a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
Right. So who am I to speak into someone else's life that I don't have a relationship with, first off?
Right.
And why would they receive anything from me if I don't have a relationship with them? So it's very important that you have a relationship with them. And then, talking about our first point is knowing the person that we're discipling, knowing them, knowing how they work, knowing how they function, knowing the things they need, knowing the things they don't need, knowing the places they need help in, knowing the places that we need to, hey, we need to grow in this area, knowing the direction that they're wanting to go, right? Because if you're taking them this direction and they don't want to, this is not the direction or end goal that God has on their life, then that's something important to know. So that you can correctly lead them and guide them into where God's called them to be.
Yeah. So the main text that I wanted to look at for this point right here is Matthew 10:30, and Jesus says, "But even the hairs of your head are all numbered." God knows the amount of hairs on your head, and if we're imitating God, as we talked about in the first one, in the first episode of this month, we're modeling. If we're imitating God, we need to know our people deeply.
That's right.
God knows us so deeply. He knows the amount of hairs on our head. He knows everything that's in our heart. He knows our hopes and our dreams and our aspirations. He knows the things that break our heart. He knows the things that uplift our heart.
That's right.
He knows everything about us. He knows us better than we know ourselves. And so we need to do everything that we can to intentionally learn our people.
Yeah, here's some questions that you can kind of ask yourself as you're learning to mentor, and learning to, because again, I'm personally in that area and time of my life where I'm learning to mentor people, because again, people have transitioned from our youth that have a calling on their life, and now they're walking in that calling. And so for me, it's like, well, the conversation doesn't just stop now. Right. It's just because they're not in our youth ministry anymore. How do I continue to connect with that person? How do I continue to offer my help and resources and wisdom and opening the door, to keep the door open for continual pouring into of that person? It doesn't just end just because they left now, or because they're not in this building with us or even in the same city as us. And so that light bulb clicked with me this past year, because I was like, there are some of our students who are now walking in the calling that God has on their life.
And that's cool.
It is really cool, but also it's like puts a urgency and a pressure on you as the leader that helped open that door for them. Not saying that I created the door. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in the sense of helping walk them to that place in their life that allowed them to walk through the door, that taught them that doesn't just stop. right? It has to continue to happen because that is, I feel like, the next level of leadership for that individual. I didn't build the relationship to not continue the relationship, right? That's not the goal. And so I'm in this area, and so I ask these questions.
Real quick, I just thought of something, and I think it's a decent thought.
Yeah.
I think your jurisdiction for, I guess, being responsible for someone or for leading someone,
Yeah.
a better way of saying that, your jurisdiction for leading someone extends as your level of leadership increases.
For sure.
So if you're on level 1 position, then once someone is outside of the jurisdiction of your position, they're no longer under you positionally, they're no longer in your youth group, you're no longer their youth pastor,
Yeah.
then your jurisdiction ends and you no longer lead them.
Yeah.
But since you've built a relationship and you lead by relationships, you lead by level 2 permission at least,
Yeah.
and beyond that, then now your jurisdiction extends, and it's not just people who are in your youth group, it's people who have graduated, it's people who you've built a relationship with.
That's a great way to think about it, for sure. Because again, you have those connections, you have that relationship to be able to pour into people's lives. It's not random.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and so the conversation continues to happen. And so that's where I'm personally trying to grow in my life, is these students that have graduated, well, how can I continue to help them? How can I continue to pour into them, or send them a text and encourage them, or offer resources or help, or or again, whenever they graduate, or whenever they even come home during the summer because they're at college and they come home for the summer. Well, then how can I make sure that they're plugged in and continue to learn and develop? That's my job.
Yeah.
That I need to continue to do that. But not for the sake of building my platform, but for the sake of helping this individual to continue to grow them, right? Because it's about people,
Yeah.
and it's about the advancement of the kingdom, and that happens through mentorship at that point. And so here's some questions that you can ask. How deeply do you know that person? Think about it. How deeply do you even care about that person, or the things, or the dreams in their lives? Whenever they come to you and they say, "Hey, this is what God's put on my life," and they begin to share their heart, and you feel that this is from their heart. Well, how deeply do you actually care?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Would you do whatever it takes to make sure that happens, or create a path or direction that maybe doesn't even exist? And you say, "No, I care so much because of the relationship and the person I know you and what God's trying to do in your life. Let's make it happen. Let's figure it out." Right? Let's turn the world upside down for Jesus. That kind of mentality. So how much do you care? And what are you willing to do to make sure that they're able to walk in the calling of God on their life?
Right.
What excuse can I remove as the mentor? What excuse can I remove from them that would allow them to do it? Is it resources? What can I do? Is it money? What can I give them? Right? Or is it a policy that I have that interferes with them to allow to do what God's called them to do? Well, hey, let's look at it. Is this something we can change? Is this something we can tweak? Right? Or is this something that we can mesh into our system or into our plans that we have in place to make sure that they're able to walk in the calling that God has, if that makes sense. Because you're trying to do whatever it takes, right? And in the sense of the people over policy or plan, right? Because you desire and you truly care about that person, and so you do whatever it takes, and to help make sure they walk in that. So you ask these questions. It's important to know: are you intentionally learning your people? Is this an ongoing process? What are you doing on your calendar that is written down for everyone to see that you are intentionally trying to build relationships with this person? Right. And so for me, as I've been learning to do this, is where on my calendar or where on my iPad or whatever am I intentionally doing mentorship? Whether it may be that text that I send to them. Am I doing that, consistently, and making sure that happens?
If it's not on the calendar, it's not happening.
That's right. And so you ask these questions. Again, if it's not intentional, it's not happening, like you just said.
Yep, doesn't happen by accident.
That's right. That's right.
And then from the book, Becoming a Person of Influence, which, again, it heavily influenced what we're talking about right here. The model, motivate, mentor, all that stuff came from this book. So it asks these 3 questions to help you learn your people. What makes them sing? What makes them cry? And what makes them dream?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
What makes them sing? What makes them sing? What is their joy? What is their joy in their life? And we've already asked similar questions, given you questions to ask, but these are the questions that they ask. What makes them cry? What makes them sad? What grieves their heart?
Yeah. What burdens them? Yeah.
And then what makes them dream? Where do they want to go?
Yeah.
Figure those things out. And then finally, this isn't from the book right here. This is my own question. Someone may ask, why does it matter? What does it matter that I need to know my people?
Yeah.
What does it matter if I know them? Do they care that I know them? Here's a quote from 21 Laws that we continue to use. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
That's right.
It's exactly what we've been talking about this whole time, man. You have to know your people and you have to care about your people.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to care how much you know. They're not going to allow you to mentor them until they know that you care.
That's right. I agree.
And then that goes into this second point right here. Mentors provide direction and means.
That's good.
Not just direction. Motivators can provide a direction.
Yeah.
But now we're moving up from motivating. We're moving into mentoring. We're not just telling people this is where we want to go or this is where you ought to go or encouraging them saying, yeah, you got it, you got it. No, this is beyond that. This is how do you get there? Luke 24:48 through 49. It says, you are witnesses of these things, and behold, I am sending the promise of the Father upon you, but stay in the city until you are clothed with power from on high. And then Matthew 28:20. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. Okay. Now, I want to look at that first part right there in 24:48. It says, you are witnesses of these things. So that's the direction. You are witnesses of these things. This is part of the Great Commission. You are witnesses of me. You are witnesses of what I've done. This is Jesus speaking. You are witnesses of the gospel of peace.
Yeah.
So that's the direction. And behold, I am sending the promise of my Father upon you. Stay in the city until you are clothed with power from on high. That's the means.
For sure.
You're getting not only the direction that you ought to go, the commission, but also he's giving you the power to be able to do it. And that's what mentors are responsible for doing.
Yeah.
It's beyond motivation. It's beyond direction. This is now, how do we get there?
That's right.
This is, I'm going to give you the power. I'm going to give you the authority in order to do this.
That's right.
I'm going to equip you. And then also, I'm with you. I am with you always to the end of the age. And I think that's another thing that mentors ought to do. Like you're talking about. They're outside of your positional jurisdiction, like we said, but it's going into a relational jurisdiction. You're now in the part of, they're out of your youth ministry, but you're still pouring into them. You're still mentoring them because I am with you always.
Yeah, that's good.
So I want to talk about delegation. How do you properly delegate? In 21 Laws, I believe it gives these ways that you delegate. It says, first, I do it. First thing, I'm doing it by myself. But then I do it and they're with me. So now I'm bringing somebody else in and they're watching, they're learning, I'm teaching them. And then they do it and I'm with them. So now they're hands-on. They're now hands-on in it, nitty-gritty, doing the thing that you're trying to get them to do, that you're delegating to them. And you're with them, holding their hand, helping them to do it, teaching them as they go. And then they do it.
Yeah.
Now they're doing it by themselves. You've now kind of taken a step back. You're still with them and you still offer help, but now they're doing it. They're in charge of it. You've now handed it off to them. And then the next thing is that they do it and someone else is with them. Now they've started to teach somebody else. And this is even going into what we're going to talk about next week.
Yeah.
Multiplying.
Yeah. Leaving a legacy.
But talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, certainly. I think, again, you have to enjoy the process because you may do this multiple times with multiple different people
Oh yeah.
over the course of your ministry time, or again, or even in the secular world. I mean, your ongoing training and teaching people. And so, first off, you have to enjoy the process as a mentor, but also as a mentee, you have to enjoy the process of learning, humbling yourself, and allowing someone to teach you. Right? The old saying, you have to be coachable. If you're going to play a sport, then you have to listen to your coach. Right? You have to be coachable. You have to be teachable, and so you have to be able to receive what is happening. And so again, I do it, and they're with me. They do it, and I'm with them. And then this is the one right here that I want to focus on, is they do it. Okay, and the reason I want to talk about this one is because this is where the full delegation has happened. That they do it. They do it. This is where a lot of people have a issue or a hang up. In delegation, and I'm pointing fingers at myself. Okay, I have a hang up with that one because I want to do it the way that I want it to be done. But what if they do it a little differently, but they still accomplish the same thing?
Yeah.
And so at some point they have to do it, or you'll never delegate it to them. You have to allow them to go do it, and maybe even mess up. And then what do? As a mentor, you bring them back, you meet, you talk about what happened, and then you go and let them do it again.
Yep.
And even if they do it 70% as good as you can do it, let them do it. Let them do it, because what you're doing is you're teaching them, you are delegating, you are allowing them to function and create something, have ownership, and may even be the person that does it way better than you could ever do it. Right? And so you have to be okay with that as the leader, of being able to meet with them and talk with them and teach them, talk about what went wrong, what went right, what was missing or confusing. You're like talking about all of those different things, and then sending them back out and allowing them to do it again. Right? And so that one's so important, but also in this one is very important too. Not just with them working with you, but even with them away from you. So say I'm talking to someone that is at college and they're doing ministry, or they're doing something else, and I'm not with them, okay, and they are doing it. they're doing it. It's full up. They're doing it. What do you do then as a mentor? This is where it comes in: is you resource them. You give them whatever they need to be successful. You open up whatever door you can open to allow them to be successful. Whether it's money, whether it's direction, whether it's wisdom, whether it's leadership, whether it's I have this book, I think this would help you. You do whatever you have to do to make sure that person is successful. And because it's so important to resource them, even if it's a burden on you, you do it. Why? Because you care about that person, and you want them to learn, and you want them to grow in the calling that God has for them. And I personally want to do for others as I would want someone to do for me. I don't want people to have to learn the hard lessons the way that I learned them.
Yeah.
There's no need for that. Why? I can give you wisdom, or I can give you a direction or I can remove it, period, for you to be more successful than I was. Right? And I'm not saying that you don't allow people to learn lessons. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if there's a way that you can remove it, remove it.
Yeah.
If you can remove any burden at all, remove that burden and let them walk in the calling that God has on their life. Right? Like, why do we feel like, well, I had to, it about tore my family apart. They should have to learn that lesson too. Why? No,
Right,
you're the person that has the means to do something about it. If that is the case, if you have the means to do something about it, then do something about it and help that person. Because at the end of the day, they're still stepping out on faith, and they're still doing what God's called them to do, and they just don't know. Help them, teach them. That's where the mentor side for me has been heavily on me right now. Is there are students out there that have graduated and they are doing and walking in hard seasons of their lives, but because they're not here, they're elsewhere, right? They're either on the mission field or they're doing ministry or they're at a college, and I want to use this time right now to teach them as much as I can about things that I have learned. Listen to what they have learned. Let it help me, right? And let this be a season where I can just pour out as much as I can to them. To help them in the long run, set them up for success, however I can, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And so I think that right there, resourcing them is such a big deal in mentorship. Not enabling them. Okay, I don't want anybody to think I'm saying that. Don't enable people. That's not what people still need to learn how to work hard. All right, but there's a difference between enabling and resource and helping them. Right. And so that's kind of where my mind is, and I think we get hung up on that often. Instead of serving with open hands, whatever I have, you have, right, to make your life easier. Here it is. I've already done the hard work. Here, take it. There's nothing new under the sun. Let me help you.
Right.
Right. Because what you do whenever you don't do that and you make people walk through hard seasons of their lives that are necessarily uncalled for, or you have the means to help, then what happens is you create people who never want help. You create people who never want help from anyone. And so then when somebody does come along to try and help them, they reject it.
Right.
And they're like, no, I got it. I'm good. I don't need you. Right. Well, then now we're not iron sharpens iron.
Right.
We're trying to kill each other.
Right.
And that's not how this was meant to be. Right. And so that's not the goal. The goal is to iron sharpens iron. The goal is to receive from people. The goal is to heed wisdom. The goal is wanting to have a mentor and humbling yourself and saying, I need help. I want to be better. I want to learn more. I don't know it all. Right. I don't want to create somebody that doesn't ever want to receive help from anybody.
Right.
Because that's not healthy.
Right.
So if that longly answers the question, but I think it's so important.
Yeah.
I'm learning that right now.
I am too, for sure. All right. Another thing that I want to talk about before we move on to the next point is navigating with others. People will need, as you delegate to them and you send them off, they will need help to navigate certain things. And so here are some questions that you can ask yourself as you're trying to help them with this. One, do they need help? That's a pretty simple first question, and you need to make sure you ask it. In general, yes, people do need help. But then the next question right here, do they ask for help? Sometimes they need help and they don't ask for it.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out how you can offer your help in such a way that isn't saying, you're doing terrible, let me help you.
Well, and it's not even like they're doing terrible. It's just, they need help because they don't know. Right? I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And again, it comes from creating a culture where people don't need help.
Right.
Right? Because you didn't and again, it's so much easier to say this than to actually walk in it because it is difficult. But creating a culture where you want to be mentored, and I want people to ask for help.
Yeah.
So that means I have to ask for help. That means I have to be open. That means I have to be willing for people to pour into me. Right?
It's the modeling.
That's right. And so you want to create that culture because if you don't, then you're going to create pastors, youth pastors, kids pastors, lay workers, secular workers, where people just know it all and they don't want help from anybody. And I'm going to serve on my little island and you're going to serve on your island and I don't want you to ever talk to me. And that's not healthy.
Right.
That's not healthy at all.
Agreed. And then the next question right here, are you giving them help?
Because maybe they ask for help, but then you're not a person of your word and you don't help them. Or you you don't follow up, or you don't do anything to actually help them. You say, yeah, I'd love to help you, but you never actually do.
Right.
That also creates and breeds that culture. Well, I've asked before, nobody wants to help me. Well, I guess I'll just quit asking.
Right.
So that comes back on the mentor.
True.
And that's a challenge to us, me and you. Let's not do that.
Right.
Let's keep our word, and let's love these people and care for them, truly care.
Yeah. And then the last question, are you giving them too much help? That's something that you need to check yourself on, because, I mean, you may end up being overbearing. I think I have been in situations in the past trying to help too much, and then I end up taking it over because, or starting to take it over because I start to see vision for this. I start to see where we can go with this. I start to see the problem, and instead of helping them to realize the problem, I'm like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
And it can be a hard thing to balance, because you have to. It's like in therapy, I heard a certain therapist say, "Well, I know the answer, but I can't just tell you the answer because you won't want to hear it."
Yeah, exactly.
I can't just tell you what you have to do. I have to help you to realize what you have to do.
That's right.
And then when you realize what you have to do, then I can help you.
That's right. That's right.
So just be careful of that, and make sure to always ask yourself those questions. I'll say them one more time. Do they need help? Do they ask for help? Are you giving them help? And are you giving them too much help?
That's good.
And then the third point right here, this is the last one. Mentors give away authority. Mark 3:14-15 says, "And he appointed the 12, whom he also named the apostles, so that they might be with him, and he might send them out to preach and have authority to cast out demons." Jesus delegated authority to his 12, and he gave them authority to cast out demons. He gave them the authority of what he had, of what people think only he had the authority to do.
Yeah.
Only he has the authority to cast out demons, but he delegates and gives us authority so that we can do what he does, so that we can do his work.
That's right.
Not because we can do it anywhere near as good, but like it says, or like we've talked about, if they can do it 70%, 80% as good as what you can do, let them do it.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're even anywhere close to that. I don't think we're even 70%, 50%. We are infinitely less good at what God's work is.
Yeah.
But he wants us to be a part in it simply because he loves us.
Yeah. When you mean even looking at Peter as they're in the upper room, right? And they all get filled with the Holy Spirit. They were resourced. Okay. They were resourced by, if you wanted to say it like this, the mentor of God, right? Yeah. They were resourced by Jesus with the Holy Spirit. And then what happened? They had the authority, they had the resources, and then Peter preaches, and 3,000 people get saved.
Right.
What? Right? And Jesus even states, "You'll do greater things than I." What? Why? Because of the incredible mentorship of Jesus, right? And the power and the authority that he was giving us and resourcing us with. And then you begin to see stuff like that happen. The same day. The same day it happened. And that's even why we have the gospel and the Bible today.
Yeah.
Wow. That's absolutely powerful. Absolutely powerful. All because Jesus allowed his authority to be given away.
Because he wasn't an insecure leader.
He wasn't. Yeah, no, you can go down that path too, man.
Yeah.
But people don't want other people taking their job. Or as people in ministry, if you're watching this, if you are in ministry right now, your job is to find someone that can do your job better than you and raise them up. You're looking for someone to take your job and to take your position. Because now, whenever you begin to do that, you are raising people up, and you are mentoring them, you're discipling them, you're teaching them, and they could do your job better than you. Well, then now you have become invaluable. And if your leadership doesn't see that, then there's an issue. There's a problem, because you're the one raising people up. And so we are working ourselves out of a job. I want to find the next youth pastor. you got to find the next media pastor or whatever, assistant youth pastor. Like, you do everything. Like, like we are trying to work ourselves out of a job, and because we want to raise people up, we want to disciple them and teach them.
So I have a couple questions right here, as we do. Questions.
Yeah, and then you're thinking about these questions. These are thinking questions to ask yourself.
Are you giving permission to your people to lead? Are you giving away the permission?
That's right.
And then do they know it?
Yeah. Yeah. Have you stated it? Have you sat down with them and told them? Right.
You can be like, yeah, y'all have permission to do, but they haven't made the connection in their head yet.
Yeah.
A lot of times. And so in my meeting 2 weeks ago, I think, I sat down with my leaders and I said, guys, you speak with my voice. You have permission. Go lead.
Yeah.
This, if I haven't stated it enough yet, I'm stating it right now. You have authority. You have permission.
Yeah.
Go lead.
And it's one thing to say it, but then the one thing to give them opportunities to lead.
Yeah.
That's another way. Is
For
giving them actual ways to lead. Not just saying, and hey, you have permission to lead, but then you hog it.
And then you walk away.
Like, no. Give them an opportunity to lead. All right. That's awesome.
And then the last question right here, are they sovereign over what you've given them? Now, I don't want to make that seem like they surpass all rules and regulations, but what I want you to see right here is that they need to have the authority over their own position, over their own place. Let it be their sandbox. They have to have that kind of authority that they can make their vision, that they can communicate their vision.
That's right.
That they can create their own strategy. And you help them with all of these things.
Yeah. You create a safe place for that to happen. Right. You like you said, a sandbox. A sandbox has boundaries, right? And if you get close to it, all right, okay, I'm coming back. Like, but it allows them to have creative ability within the role that they are currently in.
Yeah.
That's very important.
As the mentor, we do keep them accountable.
That's right.
In order to keep them within those bounds as well.
That's good. That's good.
So how do we give sovereignty and also help them navigate? Because that's what we have to do as mentors. We're helping them navigate, but we're also empowering them and enlarging them, giving them that sovereignty. From the Grow Leader podcast with Chris Hodges, he gave these questions right here. Where do you want to go? What are you doing to get there? Is it working? And what one change would make the biggest difference? So I think in order to do both of those things, to help our people to navigate and to give them that sovereignty, we have to ask these kinds of questions. And this is why I love questions. If you ask them right, it does amazing things. Yeah. Because it allows people to think for themselves. Not just giving them the answer, but allowing them to think.
Yeah. Again, creating that space for them as the mentor.
Yeah. That is the way for them to be able to lead. That's giving them the opportunity.
That's right. That's right.
So where do you want to go? That's vision. Where do you want to go? What are you doing to get there?
Strategy.
That's strategy. And then the reality question, is it working?
Yeah, you gotta have results at some place. There has to be results somewhere.
Yeah.
What are we measuring? Right.
If it's not working, then change the system.
Yeah.
You can't be married. You can't be too married to the system.
Yeah, there's no fattened calves.
Yeah.
Like, whatever we got to do.
So if you ever get stuck in one system, then you'll never find the one that works. I think Pastor Jason said that. He said, "Don't defend a system that's not working."
Yeah. Don't defend anything that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And then finally, what one change would make the biggest difference? This is the change question.
Yeah, for sure.
Is what one change can we make right now? The bottom slot. That would make the biggest difference. So I think I talked about it before. If you have a cup with 3 holes in it, one at the top, one in the middle, and one at the bottom, and water's pouring out of it, which one do you plug in order to keep water in it?
Yeah, the bottom.
You plug the bottom one.
Yeah.
If you plug the top one, then, I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is good. Yeah, so it's our job as mentors to create places and create a space where people can grow, develop, and cast vision, and get things wrong or mess up, or learn and grow. But then it's also our job, as those people are sent out, as we send those people out, our job doesn't end, right? We continue to pour into those people, and we continue to create a system within our ministry that allows people to be developed, and allows people to grow every single day of their lives. And you resource them, and you help them, and you do whatever you possibly can to teach and to develop that individual in the calling that God has on their lives. So thank you guys so much for joining us again on another episode of Upper Room Talks, as we continue our series of discipleship. And next week we will finish up our series, and we'll talk about legacy. We'll talk about multiplying this system, because it's not just about doing it one time, but it's about multiplying it all around the world for everyone to be discipled, and everyone to grow, and for the kingdom of God to be advanced. So thank you so much for joining us and being a part, and we will see you next week. Peace out.
See ya.